Good morning and welcome to the Sunday morning service at the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship in Laguna Beach. My name is Dara Skrecki and I will be serving as the worship associate this morning. Our Zoom and audiovisual text today are Don West Jr. and Pam Floodman. And our music will be led by our talented music director, Carol Cole. This morning, we are delighted to welcome to the UUFLB Joshua Berg for a service that is titled Nurturing the Liberative Ministries. When I asked him how he describes his service, he said, "It's almost impossible to predict the next trend, popular style, or viral video. It's even more difficult to foresee the political or sociological direction in which the nation, let alone the world, will turn. Growing up, mostly in the 80s and 90s, I could never imagine what is happening in the world today. Given the great odds of predicting the next great thing, who and what do we support? As a progressive people in a progressive faith, we can only hope that our radical movements that center love and fight for liberation will succeed. Today, as motivation to keep believing that the work we do matters, radical change can happen. And that sometimes the most important movements are born from the least likely of origins. We will talk about some of Unitarianism's most unlikely, yet most important change makers, the Iowa Sisterhood. Joshua Lewis Berg graduated from Meadville Lombard Unitarian Universalist Theological School and was ordained as a UU minister in preliminary fellowship in 2022. He currently works as a chaplain resident at Children's Hospital Los Angeles. Joshua lives in Burbank with his wife and two daughters and has preached at numerous UU congregations in Southern California. Each Sunday, anywhere there is a service held in a Unitarian Universalist congregation, a chalice is lit. The flaming chalice is the symbol of our faith. If you have joined us this morning by Zoom, I invite you to light a chalice within your home as Joshua lights the chalice for us here at UUFLB. Our chalice lighting words today are from Sharon Wiley. They are titled "The Balance We Seek," since we just celebrated the autumnal equinox this past Friday. The hours of day and night are in balance. In honor of earth-centered traditions that celebrate this time of year, we observe the flaming chalice holds the elements of the four directions: earth, air, fire, water, the lamp oil for the earth, the air that feeds the flame, the fire we light, and the chalice itself, the cup, the symbol of water. We light our chalice and reflect on the balance we seek in our lives, the balance we seek in our hearts, the balance we seek in our world. Thank you, Joshua, for lighting our chalice this morning to begin our time of worship. Throughout this service this morning, if you are here with us in the building, I invite you, if you wish, to come forward and light a candle here in the sanctuary in recognition of whatever you're carrying in your heart as you join us for worship today. At UUFLB, we are a welcoming congregation. Whoever you are, whomever you love, no matter your age or gender, your ancestral or ethnic background, and whatever sincere questions that you bring with you today, whatever has brought you here this morning, we welcome you to our community of mutual caring and serious intent to grow as spiritual and ethical beings. Many thanks to everyone at UUFLB who works together each week to create opportunities for us to worship together and to be in community. Our board, our worship committee, and everyone who helps to prepare each week for our Sunday morning worship services and other events such as the Zoom at noon discussion group. We also know that there are always more opportunities to work together and more to be done. So if you are looking for a way to become more involved, please reach out. For those of you who are new to our community, please connect with us after service if you would like to be added to our email mailing list so that you can receive advance notice of each service and other events, connecting with each other in this way, in the way in which is the way that we build community as a strong base from which we can go out and make a difference in the world. On the slide that Dawn will put up for us is information about upcoming services here at UUFLB. These two services are next week, October 1st. We have Terry LePage coming, and October 8th, Stacy Pendleton coming. And next we have announcements, which Oakley has an announcement.
Yeah, we're in the process of preparing an updated directory of members and friends of the fellowship. I know some of you have given your updated information to Harry Baya last week, and he and I are coordinating on this. I have the updated, at least as far as we've been able to update it so far, list with me this morning. So I would appreciate it if you would check with me if you're in the building today and verify that the information we have with you is current and correct. And if you're joining us by Zoom, I will try to be available online so that you can give it to me or email it to me later so that we can have a current list. Thank you.
Can everyone hear me? Yes. Awesome. Thank you, Oakley. And everybody. Delighted to be in beautiful Laguna Beach. I will start the service with a call to worship by one of the Iowa Sisterhood, who I'm going to talk about, one of the Unitarian ministers who were called the Iowa Sisterhood. And her name was Reverend Mary Safford. And she wrote, "Oh friends, if we only be obedient to the heavenly vision that we enjoy today, would only proclaim most earnestly in words and in deeds the glad gospel of eternal love, what might we not accomplish during the next few years?"
The gathering music was The Circle Game by Joni Mitchell. The meaning that I took from this song that relates to what we will be hearing in the sermon being given by Joshua Berg this morning was that life, world, culture changes throughout time. And that is the most we can rely on in life when what will happen tomorrow is unpredictable. Our centering thought this morning is from the Gray Hymnal, reading 651, written by Norman Cousins, titled "The Body is Humankind." I invite you, if you wish, to read these words together with me and to unmute yourselves if you have joined us this morning by Zoom. I am a single cell in the body of 4 billion cells. The body is humankind. I am a single cell. My needs are individual, but they are not unique. I am interlocked with other human beings in the consequences of our actions, thoughts, and feelings. I will work for human unity and humanity for a moral order in harmony with the order of the universe. Together we share the quest for a society of the whole equal to our needs. A society in which we need not live beneath our moral capacity, justice has a life of its own. We are single cells in a body of 4 billion cells. The body is human.
journey is humankind.
Our opening hymn this morning is 1000 in the teal hymnal, Morning Has Come. For those of you who are joining by Zoom, they will be on the screen. Please stand if you wish and join with our amazing and talented music director, Carol Cole, in singing 1000 Morning Has Come.
Morning has come, arise and greet the day. Dance with joy and sing a song of gladness. The light of hope shines upon each face. May it bring faith to guide our journey home. A new day dawns, once more the gift is here. Wonder fills this moment shared together. The light of peace shines upon each face. May it bring faith to guide our journey home. Open our eyes to see that life is bound. Open hearts to welcome it among us. The light of love is shines upon each face. May it bring faith to guide our journey home.
Let us take a moment. Sorry. Let us take a moment to remind ourselves why we come together as a community. I invite you to read these words together when and if it feels right for you. If you wish, please unmute your microphones if you're on Zoom so that we can feel the power when we join our voices together. You may sit down. The words of the Unitarian affirmation will be on your screens. Please join me in reading. Love is
Love is the
of
spirit of this fellowship
and
and
service.
service.
This is
This is our great covenant,
well
to
together
dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love,
and to
and
help.
to help one another.
We have come to a time in our service to briefly share the important events that have touched our lives in the past week. Our joys, when shared, are magnified, and in sharing our sorrows, we provide the support and care that are vital for all of us in community. During this time of sharing our joys and concerns, we have paused the recording of the service. Recording. Okay, it is as much a blessing to be able to give as it is to receive in this self-governing and self-sustaining community. We recognize that it is a responsibility to do both well. Now we have a slide up with multiple ways to give other than giving money or a check to the basket. And as we approach the time for our offering, we invite you to give what you will for the work of this fellowship that means so much to each of us. That has meant so much to those who came before us, and that will mean so much to those who may join us in the future, and to the work that we can do together. Give what you will, and we are a generous people. We will be passing a basket within the fellowship. The information on your screen provides 2 additional ways in which you can give, either electronically on the left or by sending a check to the fellowship. Please please join us now in singing to each other words of sincere gratitude. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live.
From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live.
That was beautiful. Am I on again? It's interesting because it's hard for me to hear. So, oh, now I can hear it. So for our meditation, I'm going to do a meditation on forgiveness. For as you may know, today is the High Holy Day of Yom Kippur. And I'm not only a Unitarian Universalist minister and a humanist, I'm also Jewish. So I'm going to do a meditation on forgiveness in honor of Yom Kippur, our holiest of high holy days. Now, usually this meditation involves writing your grievances on a piece of paper and casting them into a flame, but the fire marshal nixed that idea. So I'm just kidding, we don't have it. So we're just going to pretend to imagine our grievances and throw them into our flame. All of our lives, we have been told to seek that which is good, to turn our faces from the dark and toward the light, toward the beauty, toward the truth. But the truth is that the world is not always good. The light we seek casts shadows, and there is brokenness amid the beauty. Our world is far from perfect, and so are we. We strive to be in right relations with one another, but there are times, of course, when we're left angry and we're left disappointed, even as we sometimes anger or disappoint others. Whether it is the harsh words said by a loved one, the loss of a friendship, the carelessness of a stranger, or the scars left by a childhood trauma. Bad things, unfortunately, do happen. We cannot seek truth, beauty, and light without acknowledging and affirming that which is false, broken, and in the shadow. For all of these exist within us as well. So in this moment of silence, let us remember the wrongs that we have endured, the imperfections that we have perpetuated, that we may forgive them and ourselves, and then forgive yet again. And in the time that follows, let us think about our resentments. Let us give form in our minds to our grievances and imagine them going into a flame to burn. For like our anger, the flames may burn and they may destroy, but like our love, The flames may also cleanse and purify. Let us undertake the work of forgiving ourselves and each other, that we may begin again in love. Back into this sacred space. Welcome all from across the country. Welcome all from across the world that we have here today. Welcome all bipeds. Welcome all quadrupeds, who we seem to have here as well. It's a delight to be here. So, if you'll indulge me, I'm going to do something a little different. I'd like to first set the scene for my talk, for this sermon, by taking you on a little bit of a sensory journey back to the end of the 19th century, in the 1800s. So if you can picture a white woman, Unitarian minister, in an older house, a once used to be colorful Victorian house, standing in a sea of cornfields. She's in her favorite chair in the house. She is one of the first women of either the Unitarian or the Universalist denominations to ever be ordained. She and her sister Unitarian ministers are known as the Iowa Sisterhood, and they are spreading Unitarianism through the rural Midwest. In fact, it was so common to have a female Unitarian minister in the Midwest at this time that a child in the pews once commented on a visiting preacher and was so surprised. He said, "Mommy, look, there's a man preacher." It was that uncommon in the Midwest at this time. So the morning sun rises outside this house. It streams in through the windows, warming her as it reawakens the musty odors of home and hearth. Imagine it, the smell, picture it in the cornfields. And her spirit is elevated by the colors from the stained glass of an Art Nouveau clerestory window. She remembers imagining this as the light from an angel's eyes when she was a child in the pews of her parents' church. And this window was then given to her by her own congregation in honor of service when they built a new, more modern church home. She has it in her house. So she gathers this energy of the angel's light of the window, and she rises as sweat draws down her back, connecting her to her own body deep below the high chiffon collar and the tight corset and the multiple laminations of her heavy velvet frock. And she straightens her clothes. She walks to the door. She opens it, and she is immediately gifted with the minty oregano scent of wild bergamot growing in the yard. Can you smell it? This is a Sunday morning in the Midwest territory of a young America right before the turn of the 20th century. Now, in the urban centers of the East, Boston and the East, transformed by the Industrial Revolution, Unitarianism leadership is entirely male-led. in the East. But here in the rural expanses of the American frontier, it is women ministers who are doing the arduous work of spreading the faith. Without equal pay or without equal recognition, they are guided by their Unitarian values, and they are motivated by the promise of the heavenly vision, as Mary Safford said, the heavenly vision of liberal religion. And now the minister we're imagining in this old Victorian surprises herself with a long sigh as she walks out. She breathes out the work week, and she steps through the portico, reset and enlivened, anticipating her charge to feed the spirits of her flock with worship of what their newly adopted Unitarian statement of faith named the love with which our souls commune. We're renaming love right now. We're reclaiming it now, if you've read our new article too. And it's what they claimed back the turn of the 19th century as well. Today, that same love we are describing yet again. And to worship this love, it serves us well to commune with those souls of our ancestors who sowed the seeds for our faith's growth. And according to their statement of faith, they believed that reason and conscience are final authorities in matters of religious belief. They believe that to love the good and to live the good is the supreme thing in religion, counting nothing good for self that is not good for all. Sounds similar, sounds familiar. And as previously stated, they worshiped one and all that love with which our souls commune as well. These sentiments align with our current UU principles today. If we also align with the spirit of strength and of courage and of perseverance of the likes of the Iowa Sisterhood, of Reverends Mary Stafford, of Caroline Bartlett Crane, of Florence Buck, of Marion Murdoch, of Eleanor Gordon, all the Iowa Sisterhood, we too can cultivate new sacred territory today. In the 21st century, as we rise in our own homes, I don't know if there are any faded old Victorians in Laguna Beach, but anyway, as we rise in our own homes, we are them. We are those ministers, and they are us. I am this preacher whose sage words will nourish her congregation. You are the congregant and the lay leader who works against all odds to support our beloved faith as the country grows. And connecting directly into this home in this cornfield, realizing that they too had immense challenges. And they too were fallible, just like us. And they too faced each new day, just as we do. Connecting in that way facilitates an ability to travel with them in spirit. It enables us to know that if they did the work, which they did, the seemingly impossible hard work they did, we too have the capacity to do the work that must be done. Now, it may seem our struggles are very different from the Iowa Sisterhood, and many are, but certain struggles we still confront over a century later. We also must recognize that the day this particular minister left for worship, that day was only a few short years following Supreme Court rulings legalizing segregation, slavery in yet another incarnation, despite the 13th Amendment and the Emancipation Proclamation, and perpetuating America's long-established caste system. We cannot forget that. We cannot forget that the very moment this minister anticipated the first hymn of her beloved worship, it probably wasn't Joni Mitchell at that time, but something beautiful. The first hymn of her beloved, at the time, that moment this minister anticipated that, the Code of Indian Offenses forbade Indigenous Americans from practicing their religion at all. So we honor their contributions, the contributions of the Iowa Sisterhood and their strength and courage, the contributions to our faith as the pioneers that they were. But we honor them only with direct recognition of the fact that they too were colonizers of this country. Notwithstanding, the spreading of the Unitarian faith itself, even still evolving into a more just faith, as we still are, was filled at the time with a sense of excitement and of adventure. And I believe we can tap into a similar energy today. Just as the Iowa Sisterhood confronted the physical frontier with the charge to tenaciously build homesteads of Unitarian faith as they envision them, we too are setting out into an unknown expanse today. It is one with as much risk of danger, yet also just as much or more fertile spiritual soil in which to support life and in which to foster love. I truly believe that. Between 1880 and 1930, the 21 women of the Iowa Sisterhood changed the course of Unitarianism by building churches and promoting a theology of universal love and justice. If we harness that tenacity of the Iowa Sisterhood, we too can move the needle even further today. We can shepherd our faith into a future that will see our country and Unitarian Universalism grow and prosper, transformed by breeding liberation for all. Now, there's one more sobering lesson in this story I want to talk about. After the Iowa Sisterhood worked for decades to build the faith with numerous churches and numerous parishioners, those denominational leaders in the East pilfered their gains and they squandered their talents. So imagine again, let's go back to the home in the cornfield, this same minister rising on a Sunday, now it's 20 years later. The bergamot, it still blooms, yet now it fails to uplift her spirit. She's now climbing into a Model T, wearing a 1920s cloche hat and a much lighter dress, but she also has a much heavier heart because she is keenly aware that the country's ills are being blamed on cultural emasculation. And especially within the Unitarian denomination, there's a growing desire to regain a supposed lost virility to prevent any further adverse impact from feminism. They don't want any more women ministers. And the leadership of the American Unitarian Association was opposed to filling vacancies with women ministers. Now, there were still men of rank who supported the Iowa Sisterhood, mind you, like Jenkins Lloyd Jones, who worked tirelessly on their behalf. But these men were also being driven out. And consequently, the Iowa Sisterhood redirected their passion for justice through faith away from the Unitarian Church. We lost them. They continued their theologically supported work for freedom and for love, and they eventually helped to achieve significant legislative and societal reform. But only now, they did all this without the continued support and in spite of new obstacles presented by the very faith that benefited from decades from their selfless toil. For Unitarian Universalism to grow and thrive, we cannot make these same mistakes. As a faith community, we must nurture and we must promote those who are leading us today in transformative change, regardless of how it challenges tradition and those of us with privilege. And we must call out all instances of marginalization and discrimination, whether by national leadership, by ministers, or by congregants, because the work that frees us all will also put many of us ill at ease. There is an ethic of risk involved. We of privilege specifically must lose our fragility and nurture all the ministries that preserve and persevere in the face of the difficult and painful process of bending along with the arc of the moral universe. And this is not to say by any means that white people or that men or that people of privilege are not wanted or needed or cannot be leaders of our faith. They are, and they can. It is to say that the Unitarian Universalist faith needs every one of us of all genders and social locations as unequivocally equal. And that requires opening space as the modern day incarnation of the Iowa Sisterhood, as our Black, Indigenous, and people of color leaders as well take their rightful place of leadership as equals. And further, I believe anyone can be the 21st century transformer doing this unrelenting work of living faith. No, we're not all ordained ministers. We're not all eloquent orators or skilled organizers and managers, shepherds of congregational growth. But what we are diverse. We are from assorted social locations with various lived experiences that are all valuable and various levels of privilege. However, since our collective Unitarian Universalist theology, being one of the priesthood of all believers, means that regardless of how we identify or regardless of our individual talents, we are all ministers. It's just for each of us to attend to our own inspirations, to attend to where our personal ministry lives in order to contribute. Yes, we are still a predominantly white faith, swimming in the culture we have inherited, the legacy of hundreds of years of white supremacy, with all the prejudice and inequity that brings. We acknowledge that. The transformative change that manifested as the female ministry of the Iowa Sisterhood, challenging patriarchy, now takes the form of the vital anti-racist and other liberationist ministries challenging oppression that is both intentional and unintentional, that is both overt and covert. Unitarian Universalism in the 21st century will only succeed by supporting these myriad of anti-racist, anti-bigotry ministries and all inspired transformative ministries wherever and however they exist. As a denomination, we are the ministers with marginalized identities on the pulpit, in the pews, participating in small group spaces, occupying every space of our organization, taking the lead in dismantling white supremacy culture. But we are the white allies as well, harnessing our privilege to support that effort in various and important ways. We are the community members who fight for initiatives against all odds. We are the board governors who shape the mission guided by a combination of fiscal responsibility and liberation theology. We are the community ministers that treat our earth with no less love than we have for our children. And we are the youth who will tolerate nothing less than a truly equitable society. We are congregations and congregants from all backgrounds who believe in the liberating power of sacred worship and ritual. We are all, every one of us, in our own way, own important and unique way, the spreaders of our faith. And Reverend Mary Stafford proclaimed that the liberal church is to be obedient to its heavenly vision. Not only must we proclaim the saving truths we hold, but we must also strive to build up these truths in our own lives and in the lives of others. It's a direct quote from Reverend Stafford. And this was a call to which the Iowa Sisterhood dedicated their lives. We can fulfill that call in the 21st century and beyond if we are obedient to the earthly vision to which we dedicate our lives. So let's go back to conclude to 1889. This minister boarded her carriage bound for her church, where she will build our denomination. Let's honor her struggle and her accomplishments as we too rise to proclaim the saving truths we hold and build up these truths in our lives and in the lives of others. If we promote and nurture the ministries that uplift us, if we promote and nurture the ministries that challenge us, as hard as it is, and the ministries that liberate us, we can lead the world into an equitable future of love with which all souls can indeed commune.
Our closing hymn this morning is 1074, Turn the World Around. The words will be on the screens. Please rise as we are comfortable to join Carol in singing 1074, Turn the World Around.
We come from the fire, living in the fire. Go back to the fire, turn the world around. We come from the water, living in the water. Go back to the water, turn the world around. We come from the mountain, living on the mountain. Go back to the mountain, turn the world around. Ooh. So is life, ah, so is life. Ooh. So is life, ah, so is life. Do you know who I am? Do I know who you are? See we one another clearly. Do we know who we are? Do you know who I am? Do you know who you are? See we one another clearly. Do we know who we are? So we one another clearly. Do we know who we are? Ooh. So is life, ah, so is life. Ooh. So is life, ah, so is life. Water made the river, winter washed the mountain, fire made the sunlight, turn the world around. Of the river, body is a mountain, spirit is the sunlight, turn the world around. We are of the spirit, truly of spirit, only can the spirit turn the world around. Ooh. So is life, ah, ooh. So is life, ah, so is life, ooh. So is life, ah, ooh. So is life, ah, so is life.
Now is the time for us to extinguish the chalice at UUFLB and within our homes. We extinguish the flame, but we keep its light in our hearts and its message of community, love, and justice, taking it out into the world in which we live until we are together again.
You may be seated. For our benediction, I'm going to use some words from another of the Iowa Sisterhood, Reverend Eleanor Gordon, who wrote, "We pass in review the history of humanity, We trace step by step the steady gain of the true, of the good, and of the beautiful. Our hearts thrill in response to the brave deeds of the past and throb with exultation as we learn more of the devotion of patriot, of the heroism of reformer and martyr, more of the earnestness of saint, prophet, and poet. As we read of what they did, we know that we cannot win what they succeeded in winning, and yet, in the presence of their success and proud achievement, in dignified humility, we recognize our kinship, and each can say, I too am a human soul. I too am a child of God. I too am an heir of all that has been won. I stand in the long line of succession and claim as my own all that I am worthy to have to hold.
Please join me as you will to sing our final song, which is Let There Be Peace on Earth, and the lyrics should be on our screen. Join hands if you like. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be. With earth as our mother, we are family. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. Every step I take, let this be my solemn vow. To live each moment in peace, eternally. Let there be peace on earth, let it begin with me. Have a lovely day.